Welcome, world, to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. I am Reverend Sandy Rogers, and as the creator of this historic event, it is my pleasure to welcome you. We come together to bring you this historic event. We have practitioners, holistic practitioners. We have medical doctors. We have spiritual individuals. This event is so lovingly dedicated to my mother, Mrs. Barbara Dean Brown. And my mother taught me like 40 plus years ago about the importance and the meaning behind herbs. And she would always say, we don't know what they putting in those pills, so you better not, get hooked on prescription drugs. And so we listened to Mom, but not all of us paid attention. My sister, bless her heart, was diagnosed recently thereafter with asthma, and she was prescribed prednisone, which is a very powerful steroid. And my sister actually got hooked on steroids, like someone out on the street kind of hooked, like on heroin or crack or something like that. And so my mom and my sister are both on the other side, living in the other dimension, but they're upholding me, and this is dedicated to their memory. So we don't want to come and make you change your mind about what you're doing. We just want to provide information to you, something different, so that you have options to choose from, so that you're not stuck. Because the environment that we now live in, the fast foods, the toxins in the air that we breathe and in the water that we drink, and the processed foods, and all of that is causing havoc on this precious body temple. So God created our bodies to heal themselves, but they can only heal themselves when they're fed and they're nourished and they're stress-free. And so the 60 or so or more experts that we have are bringing you this worldwide wellness movement in an attempt to share their testimonies and their information with you. So we have from age 14 on up. I don't even know what the oldest age is. I think 88 or something. So you see, that's a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing you. And so we hope that you come and that you get all the knowledge that you need to affect a positive change on your life, and share this with others. It's free, it's online, and so we're just so thankful that you decided to be a part of our listening community, the viewing community, and we certainly appreciate you for giving us your time of day and your energy and your efforts to being with us and to being a part of this historic event. We have pulled together people of color for you, by you, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that we too, melanated people with color, can enjoy, practice, and participate in some of these modalities that others have been doing for centuries, and that is pretty new to our community. So we talk about Qigong, we talk about meditation, yoga, spiritual work from a different perspective than religion. So we talk about the spirituality aspect. We talk about abuse in the families. We talk about all kinds of subjects because we know that in our communities there are layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff that we never talk about that's causing a negative effect on our bodies and its healing process. So we address it, whatever it is, and we hope that you will benefit from the many experts that we have, and that you walk away with lots of knowledge and lots of new information, and that you become fully empowered to share information with others. So thank you for being with us. We love you and we bless you, and we look forward to doing this again. But thanks for being here with the first one. We appreciate you.
Life, love, and wellness. Life, love, and wellness.
Greetings and welcome again to Life, Love, Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. Today we are going to have the most wonderful, informative speaker share with you. We have Charles S. Finch III, and until June 30, 2007, he was Director of International Health at the Morehouse School of Medicine. He's a medical doctor. He's one of those doctors that carried a bag and did house call for years. He's a 1971 graduate of Yale University and a 1976 graduate of Jefferson Medical College. He completed his residency at the University of California Irvine Medical Center in 1979. He joined the Department of Family Medicine at the Morehouse School of Medicine in 1982 and then the Office of International Health in 1989, eventually becoming the principal investigator of a traditional healer survey among the Seer people of Senegal. And so Dr. Finch has been to Africa 75 times. He just got back this week from Ghana. And so when we talk about complementary, integrative medicine, alternative medicine, that's how I met him many years ago. I was taking a class and I was even invited to speak on one of the modalities of alternative medicine. He's just phenomenal with his insight, and to incorporate him into this conversation as it relates to allopathic medicine and alternative complementary medicine, herbs. Dr. Finch, would you share with us some insight from your perspective, even working these last number of years in the emergency room? What do we want to be more attentive to regarding the medical field as it's serving us right now, medications, herbal supplements, health and wellness?
Well, first thing I would say is that what people think of as either traditional medicine, herbal medicine, all the names that you have given it and others do give it, that's what medicine was. And what we think of as modern medicine actually comes out of that. Now, one of the things I have done over the years is study the history of medicine, and I focus on Africa. And here's what you find right from the very beginning, going all the way back to ancient Kemet, 6,000+ years ago, and even further back than that, but let's just start there, is that there was a seamless unity between what we consider spiritual medicine, if you like, and empirical medicine, okay? Clinical medicine. There was no separation the way it is now. You know how it is. We talk about complementary alternative medicine, spirit medicine, if you like, prayer, meditation, as if it is a entity unto itself, and then there's the clinical part of medicine. That is drugs, studies of various kinds, surgery, radiologic evaluations, all of that. And I do that medicine. You know, that is how I make my living. But so therefore I know it from inside out. But beginning about 30 years ago, I also began to get interested in and learning about traditional medicine in Africa. And I realized something very, very quickly. First of all, as we've already said, traditional medicine in Africa and other parts of the world, I've had interfaces with Native American Indian healers as well. It is a spiritual medicine first and foremost. That in fact, the healing process comes down, I don't know if I want to say from above, but it comes from whatever that realm of spirit is that, shall we say, directs our lives. And in Africa, as well as Native Americans, that's a real world. That's not a figment of the imagination. And so healing comes from there. In fact, it gives rise to what we think of as empirical medicine. In the traditional sense, that's herbs. Okay, herbs, or I should say plant medicine. And in so many ways, those plant medicines, though we moved away from it when the drug industry became corporatized, if I can say that, so things got turned into tablets and pills, et cetera, et cetera. We got away from using the plants in and of themselves. And there, in recent years, there's been, shall we say, a reevaluation of that. Okay, because there's one thing about plant medicine that you find out when you sit around and listen to the traditional healers, it's not like they don't just take one part of the plant, or they do take one part of the plant, for example, whatever that plant is. But in that plant, the leaves, the roots, and the stems might all, from the same plant, might all have different applications. They might be used to treat different things from one plant. And or you get certain plants work synergistically with one another. And the plants and the herbs work seamlessly with what we call spirit medicine. So if you're going to be in a spiritual frame of mind where medicine is concerned, you go inevitably into the plant world. And that's the other thing I learned very, very early in my involvement, is these traditional healers say when they walk out into the woods, they are talking to the plants. They don't do research or experiments in the way we commonly understand. They talk to the plants, and talk to plants, talk back to them. Trees, plants. It's a conversation. You know, that, and the plants will tell you, or tell the traditional healer anyway, who knows them, what you can use me for. And of course, they are very respectful of the plant world. They don't go around chopping. That's even now, I hate to see trees chopped down. Okay, that's a whole other subject. But there's an interaction, a seamless. The healer, if you will, the herbalist, you might say, becomes one with that world. And now, who among us historically was exactly that? George Washington Carver. That's what he was. That's what he used to do, you know. He used to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, down there in Alabama, Tuskegee, and literally walk in the woods and talk to the plants. He was a natural. And, you know, and that's the thing about it. There are women mostly, but also people, men too, George Washington Carver being an example, who are naturally gifted. No one teaches them anything. And yet they still have a way of interfacing with that healing world through spirit and through the plant world. So even though I don't practice, people say, well, do you integrate that into your practice? I say, no, I can't do that. I would have had to have started something like that many years ago. And this has been an evolutionary process for me to learn even as much as I have. And I've traveled back and forth to Africa, as you mentioned, many times, and always to interface with traditional healers. Because their knowledge is vast, you know. For example, some traditional healers know know the medicinal applications for as many as 200 to 300 plants, and or the multiple applications of one plant. So, and it goes all the way back to ancient Egypt, because their medical textbooks, of which a few fragments have survived, show us that. And yet it does not, as it were, negate what we think of as empirical medicine, because the ancient Egyptians invented surgery, at least surgery in the Western sense that we know about it. They used to practice what we would ordinarily consider neurosurgery. They knew the structure of the brain in exactly the way a neurologist today would know it. They knew what part of the brain controlled what part of the body. This goes now, we're talking about 6,000 years ago. The Edwin Smith Papyrus tells you that. More than 6,000 years ago, really. So there is more things under heaven and earth that are dreamed of in your philosophy. That's what Shakespeare. That's from Shakespeare, and it's true where medicine is concerned. Now, I don't discredit or dismiss modern medicine as such. It is, but I do make a distinction, and like I said, this is what I do, so I can't dismiss it really. There is a cure, and then there is a healing. A cure relieves symptoms, removes the offending pathogen, and makes you feel better. And I'm not, again, trying to belittle that. But what healing does, it transforms one. It's a transformative experience, because it brings the spiritual dimension intimately into the whole healing process. There cannot be, in the traditional sense, there cannot be healing without a spiritual intervention. And so there's a seamless unity there, which, even now, the modern world is kind of impervious. Just unaware of. I'm not saying it's not as bad as it used to be. More people are kind of than ever used to be are more aware of this aspect of the healing work. But that's what interests me. What is the healing work? What is it you do that heals? Cure, and because when you heal, by definition, you cure.
Yes.
Curing doesn't, healing doesn't necessarily proceed from curing, but curing always proceeds from healing.
So when we talk about the pharmaceutical medications that are so prevalent right now, and so when someone is prescribed something, then there's this counteract series of meds that are orphaned as well. Then the other side of that is then we talk about healing and us stepping forward to acknowledge that we can heal ourselves, but with guided instruction or assistance and support. How do we move forward in this process?
Oh my goodness. But aside from step by step, you've heard me say that when you're talking about trying to transform the world that we live in, you've heard me say over and over again, 500 years.
500 years.
And that's everything. I'm not talking, healing is just one aspect of that. We can talk about relationships. We can talk about families. We can talk about interactions. We can talk about the dysfunctional things. Anyway, all the things that impact the way we live. And medicine and healing is exactly that. You're talking about, the little baby steps, little by little, sometimes one person at a time. And it is true, I think I've said it, let me say it again, there are people who are natural healers. There are people who, for example, can naturally bring the spirit to bear on the healing process. Either we all know of or have grandmothers and great aunts who used to do that. No one taught them anything. And people used to come to them for what? To be healed. They used to know, particularly in the country, they would know how to use plants, they would know how to pray. And by the way, yeah, prayer works. If you are a sincere prayer, it works, yes. Even modern medicine has had to finally accept that. So there are people, women usually, who are natural healers. They don't have to go to medical school. They don't have to actually be trained. Most healers, though, in Africa, for example, are apprenticed. That's mostly what happens. But every so often, you'll get someone who has the healing gift, and there's nothing, you haven't figured out how they get it. They don't even try to figure it out. They are born with it. They are endowed with it. Spirit descends on them, and they have the healing gift. They can see, for example. They can see into you. As to what they can see your aura, your energy, body, whatever you like to say, and see what's wrong with you and make a diagnosis just by looking at you, and know what is necessary to address it. And I've known individuals like that. I know that, for example, there's a group of Serere Saltigues, who are Serere priests, who came up with a 5-herb combination that was seen to effectively cure AIDS, although the people who are working with them won't use the word cure. But everything they do, everything that this 5-herb combination does, has the effect of curing AIDS. And that's under the auspices of Dr. Eric Borosu, who lives in Senegal but was originally from Benin. He's the one who was interacting with these group of healers, and they came up with this 5-herb combination, which they call Metraf AIDS. This Metraf AIDS has been patented, trademarked, but it has not found widespread, application. Why? Because they make sure that no drug company is going to grab it and use it to make $1 billion. So mostly you can get it, but you have to go to Africa to get it. And it's been proven and demonstrated. It has been subjected to drug trials and lab investigations, and even a friend of mine named Dr. Vincent Craig Bond at Morehouse School of Medicine has worked with it. And it does exactly what it says it's supposed to do. And that is it removes all the symptoms of AIDS. It raises CD4 counts, eliminates the virus, But they won't say cure because they know that if they say it's a cure, they know all that's going to do is bring down trouble on their heads. So they won't say cure. But neither will they let drug companies get their hands on it either. So they trademarked it and patented it before they put it out there. So that's an example. That's a 5-herb combination from a place called Fatigue in Senegal. That's just one example we can name, and you could go on and on like that. In fact, modern medicine was originally herbal medicine anyway. What we think of digitalis, that comes from the foxglove plant. Aspirin comes from the willow plant. There's one other thing. There's a lot more like that. A lot of the medications that we now take for granted came out of the plant world and were known to be effective. And then the pharmaceutical industry, as it developed, want to take these plants and they want to take the active ingredient. And they take the active ingredient out and then they patent that. Well, they weren't going to be allowed to do this with meth traffic AIDS because they would have. So these are just small examples of the manner in which herbal medicine can and does impact health on a wide scale.
So, Dr. Finch, when we look at the big picture of what this webinar, what this intention is about in wellness in every aspect, we're talking about behavioral health, physical health, medical health, family health, wellness. If you were asked to just, from your thoughts, from your knowing, a summation of what we might want to consider reconsidering and how we're moving forward to be healthier and to be more well.
I don't think I have anything to add that hasn't already been examined, talked about, written about, okay? Diet, exercise, the right foods, I'm looking at myself, weight control. Get rid of stress to whatever extent you can. Whether it's through meditation, exercise, however you learn how to remove stress from its impact on your life. Now, this is America. You walk out your door and, life is stressful. I get stressed out 3 times a week when I have to drive up to Norcross to the clinic where I work because that traffic has gotten to be horrendous. And yes, I can feel the stress building up in me trying to negotiate because these people are driving crazy out here. Okay, my point is, you say, well, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Those are stressors.
Yes.
And these are mental health issues as well, and they also impact physical health. Hypertension, for example. The relationship between stress and high blood pressure is by now so well established that we don't even have to argue the point anymore. Not to mention mental health. And so many people come in to see me for what seem to be just medical complaints, with half of them always have some kind of psychodynamic problem going on of one kind or another. There are a lot of things that I think about and cause me concern. And one of the big ones, if you're talking about people of African descent in America, is what has happened to the family and continues to happen with the family.
Excellent.
So you can think of 25 reasons, 25 things that are wrong with African Americans. This business of the destruction of the black family, as they say. Fathers, and there are men who beget children, but they're not fathers. Being a father is as so much psychological and sociological and social as it is biological. And that's a big part of the destabilizing of the black family. And this is, as people have pointed out over the years, this has been a systematic, effect. This effect of a systematic attempt to destabilize the black family by marginalizing the black father. And of course, what does that do? Then there's a whole lot of marginal men out there doing crime, or just not supporting their families, not supporting their children, just not being in the family constellation, in the family mode. And to me, it's a crisis of unimaginable proportions. I don't think we even realize the extent to which it is negatively impacting us, and even in ways that have, you want to call it, ripples. It ripples out into things. And I listen to a lot of people without even asking them, and they all talk, and the way they talk about their lives is clear. The father is not there in the house or in the family or in the relationship. Over and over again, I hear that. And that, of course, that makes me look at myself. I says, okay, are you at least in some minimal way doing what you're supposed to do you can't just talk about other people and not look at yourself. But the point is that I would say the crisis of the black family is a crisis of the black father, or the lack of same. And to me, I think about it every day. And I would say, if a man can only claim one accomplishment, I was a good father, he doesn't need to have any other accomplishments at all, to his credit, at all. If he can say that, then he has succeeded in life. And we're talking honestly right here.
Right, exactly.
How many men can say that? I mean, I'm not saying they're absolutely, totally absent, they're not out there, but we're just talking about numbers and percentages. How many situations I'm talking about do you know about? We could spend the next 2 or 3 hours talking about that subject, each one of us.
It's true.
I mean, if not about ourselves personally, about people we know. And so it sets my teeth on edge. And so I try to not let it, get into my head, because I'm trying to keep my stressors at bay. I just had my 70th birthday.
Congratulations.
Back in February. And I said, well, that's kind of a milestone, and you can't pretend you can't pretend anymore. Yeah, you're an old man now. You can't, that's what you are. So, live it, be that. And which is fine, because I've got 8 grandchildren and expecting 2 more. So, it works out just fine. But if I had to say one thing, the crisis of the black family is the crisis of the black father. Now, some people can say, well, that's just a little too simplistic. Maybe. But if you can show me anything else more devastating than that issue, I'd like to hear it.
Well, Dr. Finch, you're the father of 7.
I am. Thank goodness they're all grown into adulthood. Without too many scars, I don't think. And 4 of them are married with children of their own. So it has it's been fine. And of course, grandchildren.
See how he lit up with the grandchildren piece?
Special.
Absolutely.
Is there a course of action that you would recommend?
Yes.
To get us back on track?
You're asking me that, right?
Yes, sir.
You got to take. Okay, since I'm talking about black men and black fathers, you got to take them in hand and train them and retrain them at any and every age. Start at age 7, and grab them at age 25, grab them at age 55. And because there's a couple of us who talk about adult rites of passage, for example. Get them. I don't know how. Let me just put it like that. Get them and start the process of retraining, re-education, re-socialization. And even if you're only talking about, even if you can only get a relative few, start there. And I mean, be serious about it. And you can't get discouraged by a lack of success. You can't let success determine whether this is worth doing or not. You understand what I mean? Many things that you do that are absolutely necessary are not necessarily going to turn out to be successful in the way that you would understand success, and yet they have to be done anyway. You don't use success as a measure of the necessity or importance of doing a thing. But you do it. You have to do it, and that's I think. And then the men have to do it to these men I'm talking about. Get a hold of them. That's the word I'm trying to use, and start the process of re-education, re-socialization, rites of passage, into you're really having to almost retrain men how to be men. Good Lord. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but there it is. We don't know. We don't know, or lost it, or we've forgotten, or something. Or it has been the whole situation, the whole system has made us lose it, and it's a mental and psychological crisis. Mostly that. Now, there's one thing I'm noticing. I'm saying, what's going on? And I'm saying, this is nice. I'm over and watching. I'm seeing a lot of black men on the street walking around carrying babies. I think they're obviously their children. Is this something new, or is this just something I'm noticing for the first time? But I see it. I say, well, if this is a new development, then maybe there's hope. Now, I'm seeing a lot. They're walking around with young children and carrying young children. I saw one today. And my first thing I said, now wait a minute, is this really a phenomenon, or are you just noticing something that's been going on all the time? What, I don't know. I can't say. But it's coming to my attention, because I see it a lot now. And I said, well, I don't want to overinterpret what this means, if in fact it is a phenomenon, but I like seeing it. They're carrying young babies, anywhere from almost toddler infants all the way up to 3 and 4 years old.
I've noticed that as well. Yes. Wow.
And I'm saying, I don't know what to say. I don't have an expert. I don't know what that means yet. I don't want to overinterpret. You know what I mean? And I said, okay. Let me just keep an eye out, keep watching, observing, and see if this is just a misapprehension on my part, or is it passing fancy, or is this something that's really happening?
What about with the women?
What do you mean? What are you asking me?
The effect of the women on the family life.
Well, I guess I sort of, I don't want to say I take it for granted, but the family has always began. It's natural. Why for a woman? Why? Where does the family come out of physiologically? And that womb experience is permanent, a permanent impact. Whether you love your mother or hate her, she's impacted. That impact is present. So the fact that the family became, and this is true, in Africa as elsewhere, because by the way, Ghana is still matrilineal. You inherit through your mother's brother. You don't inherit from your father. Okay, yeah. So and so there is this kind of recognition that the foundation of the family in places like Ghana, traditionally speaking, the cities, of course, have destabilized things, but this comes through the woman. And every situation in Ghana, every village, every organization, every religion has a queen mother. I didn't know there were so many queen mothers. Everybody, they got queen mothers. It's like they can't function without a queen mother. I said, well, this is interesting. I had sort of read about it, so you read about it in anthropology books and history books, but you're seeing, because the Asante Hene, he was up there, he's the king, but right next to him is the queen mother. And she gets as much deference as he does. So that is, and that's still very real in Africa. It hasn't been so westernized that that's gone. So that means we think of family strength coming from the mother, but there's also a way in which political strength does too. In ancient Kemet, it was, again, the same thing. It was a matrilineal succession. So the mother of the king was the pharaoh, was almost as important as he was. It's the mother. It's the queen mother that's really powerful in traditional African settings. And they look at, and people are, you know, they're very deferential, respectful around her. We can talk more about that, but that I think that to me said it all. But that's what I say. The womb is the physio. If you want to get a physiological definition, is that the word? It's the womb. This is the reason you don't want me to get started on this. But since I'll say this, I've told women this too. I've said, don't let anyone take out your womb if you don't have to a woman. I mean, I know people get what do you call those things? Fibroids and things. I'm not saying that there's no reason not to, but there was a time when women would sometimes have their wombs taken out just so they wouldn't have to worry about their periods anymore. No, don't do that. You see, because it's not just a physiological center; it's a spiritual center. Just like the heart, there's spirit that comes out of the womb that defines not only the woman herself, but her children, of course. Children are just imprinted by the mother in a way that can never be changed. And the womb is as much a spiritual center and a spiritual source as it is a physiological source of life. So that whole womb energy and everything related to the womb and motherhood has, in Africa, nobody ever tries to deny that or minimize that or anything. Quite the contrary. And that Queen Mother, oh boy, you tiptoe around her. Everybody does. Maybe we need some Queen Mothers among us.
That's what's up.
I mean, and women who will know, who will act the part. You know what I mean? Not just sit around and be the Queen Mother. I mean, there's a certain amount of the responsibility. There's you got to be a model. You've got to be somebody who takes care of not only the family but the society or the village, etc., etc. So yeah, maybe we need to think about how we select some Queen Mothers among us.
Well, we really, really appreciate you and your time, and you bring a world of wealth to us on every aspect, not just the continent of Africa. And we just really appreciate you, Dr. Finch.
Oh, by the way, I should mention, as of about 5 days ago, I am Kwaku Kwesi. All of us who went to Ghana had a naming ceremony, and we were each given names. So I was born on a Wednesday, so I'm Kwaku. If you're in Ghana and you know the day of the week that you're born, you have a name. You have a name. And that's my second African name. The Serer, who I've mentioned already,
Yes.
they gave me the name Wagan Fai, which is the name of their first king back in the 14th century. So I have two African names now.
What an honor. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing with us today, and we look forward to your piece and your input on the World Wide Web.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you, Laura.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
Jesus. She is just a spark of light out in this world. And so we're going to touch on several topics, and I believe one of them will be the parent of a special needs child and what opportunities that brings to her in her life, and then wherever we're led to go from there. So, Mimi, I would first like for you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Marixa de Jesus, and everyone knows me by Mimi, so everyone calls me Mimi. And I am a Latin woman raised in New York and Brooklyn. And I do have a child that's special ed. Her diagnosis at birth is Cridushat, CRI-DU-CHT. And the short name for that is cat cry. That is her diagnosis. And they diagnosed her at birth. And at birth, what happened is they call it the cat cry because they're born with a high-pitched cry. It's the first recognition that they can tell it's a special child, because then they really cry like a cat, like a real cat. So that's how they were able to diagnose her at birth. So she is now 32. And I've raised her as a single parent for 32 years. And it's still a learning journey for me, raising a special ed child. Yeah.
What type of issues did that bring up for you?
Let's see. Well, having her at a young age, I was 21 when I had her. I wasn't ready to be a parent. I really was not planning to be a parent. I had goals to be a professional dancer. I love jazz. I love butterfly dance. I love African jazz, and I've done a lot of dancing before I knew I was pregnant. And the thing was that I didn't know I was pregnant until I was 5 months already in it, and so it was very surprising for me. So I had my daughter against my will, because I wasn't really ready to be a parent. I didn't want to be a parent, to be honest. So the struggle was, I was young. That was the first struggle. I never really had a chance to live life yet, to explore myself yet as a dancer. So the struggle there was being young, and once I gave birth to her, everything changed. There was no teenager, there was no freedom anymore, there was no, my vision was just gone, my dreams was gone, and everything just completely changed, And when they told me at the hospital that my daughter, her diagnosis was Cridushat, that she wasn't gonna live past 3-4 months old. And she stayed in the hospital for 3-4 months old. And I definitely still did not wanted her. And my mother, I do have to say honestly, my mother was at the hospital with me, and they asked me if I wanted to bring my child home with me. She had a feeding tube, and she couldn't drink out of the bottle, so she had a feeding tube. And I realized later on that the 3-4 months she was at the hospital was because they were doing a lot of tests and using her as a guinea pig to find out more about her. And I didn't know that at that time. So she stayed at the hospital for 4 months. And when they asked me that I wanted to bring her home with a feeding tube and teaching me how to, deal with it, I told them no. That was the truth. And my mother was there, and she started crying, and my mother's very high in faith. If there's nothing else, she believes, and she has high faith. And she said, no, I don't care what the doctor's going to say about her, that she's going to die at 3-4 months or whatever the case is. She's going to suck on a bottle before she leaves this hospital, and she's going to be okay. She's going to come home with us. So I went with my mom, and I agreed to bring my daughter home. And it was crazy because it was actually the day before she was coming home, she sucked on the bottle. She was drooling and everything because she has no sensation in her bottom jaw. She has a small little jaw. So she used to suck, and her lip used to go in. And she was the prettiest little baby. And she didn't need the feeding tube anymore. And that's how my faith got stronger, because I've seen it and witnessed it. And my mother said prayer does work. Prayer is powerful. So my faith got stronger then. And I said, well, he's listening. He's going to guide me. He's with us. My daughter got out of the feeding tube and she started to suck on the bottle, and I brought her home the next day. And the challenges was that I made a lot of errands. I didn't know how to be a parent, especially to a special child. She couldn't talk, she couldn't walk. So it was a lot of struggles. It was a lot of accepting, didn't want to accept her condition, where she didn't walk till she was 5 years old. So I had a hard time with that. She was bow-legged, pigeon-toed, but she was the cutest little thing trying to walk. Oh my gosh, she was so adorable trying to walk. So what I determined to do in Brooklyn, what I did from where we lived, I walked her every day. I held her hand with her feet being all crooked, pigeon-toed, twisted in and everything. I was determined to walk her every single day, probably about 4 miles back and forth. And I did that for a long time, and my mother thought it was cruel because my baby couldn't walk. But then she walked. She walked at the age of 5 years old, you know. So it's a lot of struggle with that, But I'm so grateful that I stayed faithful, that it will get better. It will get better. Tough, but it will get better. So I would say every day was like, it was tough and then it was a miracle. Then it was tough and then I seen miracles. So I hung in there, 32 years now. I hung in there. Yeah.
What a beautiful story. And I
Yeah.
can imagine that you were a little bitter in the beginning because you felt that your life had changed so drastically with the birth of your daughter. But then you became so alive as you talked about the progress that she made, especially as a little baby, and then walking her, and the condition of her body and how beautiful she was. So that's such a wonderful, wonderful story. So as she gets older, does the challenges change?
Yeah. Well, looking at today she's 32, and she's still mentally as a 7-year-old. So basically, we have our children and at a certain age, 19, 20, we'll be happy that our kids can move on, go to college, get married, and move out the house. Well, my reality was that my child would never move out my house. And I will always be caring for my daughter as a 5-year-old, and she's 32. So I think about it sometimes. I say, wow, everything that we do for a 5-year-old, like I have to brush her teeth. She'll do it, but she doesn't do it properly. I have to do all her hygiene. I have to make sure she's clothed properly. Sometimes she wear her clothes backwards. She don't know how to tie her shoelace. She don't know how to zipper her jacket. So everything is still hands-on guidance, and it's still like she's a 5-year-old. I have to make sure I watch her when she's eating, particularly also because she doesn't have much sensation on her bottom jaw. So I have to always watch her, that she chew her food and chop her food down like she's a baby still. So there's still a lot that I do with her as a 32, but it's still a 5-year-old. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's exhausting, very, 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 very exhausting as a single parent still raising her by myself. But I've seen a lot of progress with her. I mean, a lot of progress. She loves to swim, so she's into swimming therapy. She loves music, so she's into music therapy. She loves to dance. She's into Zumba. She does basketball. Now she wants to learn piano. And she wants to learn to read. So I'm excited about her still growing. She's such a beautiful, she has a lot of love in her heart. And I know that comes from her mama. And she loves to take care of other kids. When she sees other kids, and we are in an event, she sees other kids that are less fortunate than her on a wheelchair. and they can't talk and stuff like that, or they had a hard time walking, she always just goes right to the kids and wants to help everybody possible, and I love that about her, and it's just a lot, it's a lot. Her progress is slow, but she's learning. She's still learning. I'm still learning through her, how to be more patient, how to just know that have faith that it will get better. If she's not able to tie her shoelace today, she will one day. So that's what I always tell her. Oh, it's okay. We'll practice and you'll do it one day. Her swimming right now, she's in swimming classes, and she used to wear a full vest to swim, but now she's wearing a little belt to swim. So mama don't know how to swim. So hopefully one day she could teach me how to swim. But her progress is slow, but it is getting better. My faith has gotten really, really stronger. My patience gotten a lot better. I have to learn to, some things I had to learn to really just kind of ignore, not get too excited, not get too upset, or sometimes I feel, what's the word I can say? Shameful sometimes. Like when you're around other people, people will make you feel like they're still ignorant adults. I'll forgive children because children don't know better, but adults sometimes can be still a little ignorant and harsh. So they'll give her a certain look. But my daughter has such a strong confidence, that if she doesn't know how to climb up in the park, they have a little thing where you climb up to get on the slide. And because she still has a hard time with her feet, she'll try it. She'll get along with any kid, and she'll try it until she can't do it no more. And she said, well, I'll go to something else. And a lot of times I'll see how the parents will look. It gets a little harsh sometimes. But I've learned to just still focus that my daughter's still learning. My daughter's a special gift. She is my gift. I truly, truly, truly believe my daughter is my guardian angel. She really is my guardian angel. So it's still a journey. It's still a journey for both of us.
Yeah, I believe your daughter is teaching others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How acceptance and unconditional love. So
Yes.
that's incredible.
Yes.
And so you talk about possibly the same issues that all parents have, and in caring for your child. It's just that yours has lasted longer than most parents. Do you find it difficult to keep balance in your life? Do you take time out for yourself? Do you make sure that in order to give your daughter the best, that you're giving yourself the best first?
Yeah, that's the hard part there. As a parent, we just give, and totally forget about self. So the balancing part with that, it's difficult. It's gotten better for me now, where I got myself involved in a small women's group. But basically, the women's group is called Butterfly Sisters, and we're learning how we're growing, changing from a caterpillar to a blossom butterfly, and learning self-love. And all that I do for my daughter, I still have to remember what is my self-love. And my self-love, I started saying to myself is that I am a super mama. What is my strength as a super mom? What is my strength of self-love? And it's confidence. I continue to have confidence. I continue to have faith. I continue to want to share love. Continue to want to educate people as much as I can. To share, the education and the love. And just continue to give myself the affirmation of self-love. Mom, you got to give yourself self-love. So it's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing, to give self-love and not get caught up always on having to give my daughter and do for my daughter and stuff like that. So it's getting a little better. Right now in my life, I am tired. As a parent, I'm really tired. I'm very exhausted, to be honest with you. But I think of, like, I'm going to give you an example. Last night, I have a best friend that also does butterfly dancing. And she's been my friend maybe close to 30 years in New York. She's still in New York. And in her late age, she's also my age, 54. She just had a son. Her son is 10, and he's autistic. And of course, she kind of leans a lot on me because she doesn't know anyone that close and really seen from experience raising a child with special needs. So she depends a lot on me, and she asks me for a lot of suggestion. And last night, her son has gotten to the point, he's a boy, and he's very aggressive. He's hitting her now. He's very angry and very aggressive, that he's becoming very verbal towards her. And she's soft-spoken. She's laid back. So I had to give her that tough side, like, if old Dave, if you got the whip they behind, you need to whip they behind to let them know who's boss. Whether they special or not, they do have some kind of common sense. They kind of know what they're doing, so they push buttons. So that's what her son is doing, because he know that she's soft-spoken and she's laid back. So she's, it just overwhelms me. Sometimes I wish that I can be there for a lot of the parents and take away a lot of that struggle that I've been through when my daughter was young. It's a lot easier now that she's getting older, a little easier. But she's going through the beginning stages of the kid when they're young. And it's hard. Oh my God, it's so hard. So all she do is cry. And she's losing faith. She wants to give up. She wants to give the child up, send him to a home and have someone else raise him, or so forth. And so what I want to do, if I can't do nothing else, is my dream right now today, honestly, is to have a spa. Reflexology, I've learned this in New York, which treatment with acupuncture, treatment with chiropractor, treatment with reflexology, treatment with massage, anything that we could possibly do on a natural, holistic approach to release stress, because stress is a killer. I know that personally. Stress will kill you. And there's nothing wrong with you health-wise. You get really stressed where the body can't take it, your body's going to shut down. So stress is something that we can't afford to live every day being overly stressed. So I want to have a spa, just something real simple, and have a reflexology for the women, sit in a nice massage chair while they're sitting down doing reflexology, and then give them like a half-hour body massage. And in an atmosphere where the aromatherapy really sets in, the music sets in, and bright, beautiful colors that make you feel like you in motherland, because that's what I want to call it, the motherland. I'm doing raw foods. I do believe that we are what we eat. Eating healthy is a big form of self-respect, and I want to continue to learn that. I have a house now, so I want to grow my own vegetables and fruits and learn to be a gardener. So that's a project that I want to continue to start now. And then just eating more healthier. My parents are from Puerto Rico, born in Puerto Rico and raised in Brooklyn, but we still believe in doing everything as natural as possible for any illness or dis-ease of the body. Basically, to me, I learned when the body is going through something, the body is lacking something. We need to find out what it is before we even start man-made medicine or whatever. I believe the body heals itself. I truly believe that. And it's a mind, body, and soul. I'm really strong on that. But this post here that I have, I love it. It says, the cell in our bodies are listening and is responding. It's listening and responding to everything our mind is saying. So if I say that's not going to happen, that's not possible, well, that's negative. And to me, well, the body naturally is going to build negative cells. So if we're saying something positive, like it's gonna happen, it's out in the universe, it's gonna happen. This is what it is. I vision it. It's gonna happen, and you go for it. And all the self love and all the self talk and the positive talk. What it does on the positive talk, it boosts your immune system with all the positivity. So then on the other side of that, it's gonna build positive cells. So I'm really, really serious about that. And all that I do every day is possible. As much as I can, I try to still keep something positive going on because I can't afford the stress to kill me. Not today. And also young, I was diagnosed HIV positive after the fact I gave birth to my daughter. So that's 30 years plus being HIV positive. I've learned a lot and been through a lot. And I have a lot to share that will give other people hope and faith that it does get better.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
Living healthy and working out and running are a part of my my lifestyle, my daily regimen. And I got started. Well, my mother was in physical ed, and so she very early brought me along with her in tennis and other sports, swimming. But then as I began to embrace my favorite sports and outlets, we'll put it that way, I began to become very interested in the nutrition aspect of it, and then also how to make my body reflect my health habits. So I would say I started very young, and thank God it's carried on into I just turned 50 last year, working on 51, and very happy to say that I am healthier now than I was back in my 30s. And so some of my daily routines and regimen include working out. I'll go and I include at least 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, running. I love to run, or some type of cardio class, cycling, a cycle class at the gym. And then I'll also use the weights, whether it be upper body or lower body. It just depends on how I'm feeling. Currently, I'm training for a couple of sporting events. One is called the Ragnar, and it's going to be in Canada in a couple of weeks. It's in June. And what that entails is me running different legs of a relay. It's called the Ragnar Relay. And so we'll be running continuously for about 24 to 36 hours. It's a relay where a group of people, and usually in the group of about 12, they split up certain different legs of a race, and we run over 300 miles in about 24 to 48 hours. Yes, and we're going to start Friday and end Saturday evening. And very exciting event. It's going to also entail running through the evening and sleeping outside, and riding in a van alongside runners. So, and it's going to be also very exciting because we'll be in Niagara Falls. So I'll actually end the run and I'm the last leg in Niagara Falls. So I'm looking forward to that. So been training for that. It entails running at all times of the day, how experiencing how it feels to run in the evening after you've worked on tired legs, and then also very fresh in the morning. So the preparation is, I've just been running at all times and making sure my diet reflects something that will help me endure the running. Along with that, Ragnar, I'm training for a relay. It's another relay. It's called the Ironman Augusta. So I'm going to do a relay with my cousins, and I'm going to do the swim section. So my cousins, one is doing the cycle, and the other is doing the running. And so I'm going to do the swim section. So it's a new experience for me. I swim. I love to swim, and so they made me do the swim section. I'm eager to just participate because I've always wanted to participate in an Ironman, to give me kind of a look what it entails, so that in the future I can do the full legs, all three. So
explain a little bit more about the Ironman.
Oh, well, it is an endurance race that entails 3 different segments. The first segment is swimming, the second segment is riding a bike, and the third segment is running. And so in that sequence, we're going to do the half Ironman. I'm going to do a mile swimming. My cousin's going to do 50 miles on the cycle, and my other cousin's going to do 13 miles running. The full Ironman, it entails 2 miles swimming, double everything, 100 miles on the cycle, and 26 miles. Now, 26 miles. So imagine one person doing all 3 of those at one time at any given day. So yes, just very an endurance-based race that a lot of people really just want to complete, just to test themselves and see, and I understand that once you've done one, you want to do others. So just as with races, marathons, if you've done one, you really want to, test yourself further and do more than one. So
as with most things, the variety really keeps you motivated and inspired to keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Not only the variety with the different segments of the race, but also they take them all over the world. You can do it in Hawaii, other different countries. I had met this guy who was doing one in Dominican Republic, and so it's just they go all over the world. It's very exciting, and there's like blogs and people who keep up with each other to say, hey, well, we're training for this, and it's very fun stuff.
So how long have you been involved in the running aspect? I know you said your mom started you as a young person.
Let's see, I've been running for about 8 years now. About 8 years. I was a what my husband would call a gym rat when we met. We met, and he couldn't keep me out the gym at night. He said, "Wait a minute, I thought we got married." I went to the gym every day. Every day, it was not a day. And so then I had to change my schedule, and start going in the morning with him. We started off at 5 a.m., which I prefer now. There's no way I can work out in the evenings unless I have to. But I started off in the gym, and became friends with people, and this one young lady came and said, well, after a workout one day, she said, hey, let's go out for a run. I said, I can't run. I never thought I could do it. And we only did 1 mile. And after that, I was like, that was it. And I've been hooked ever since. That 6 months later, I signed up to do a half marathon. Yeah,
wow.
So I was hooked. Yes. And since then, I've done, last year I did 3 marathons, and the year before that I did 1. And so just really, it's an evolving thing. Once you become comfortable, you want to continue to add. And so that's why I'm adding on the Ironman aspect of it.
And your cousin, you run marathons with her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a family affair.
Oh, absolutely. I've even had. We just ran a half marathon in LA couple of months back. Excuse me, it was last month. And a friend of mine ran with us, and he says, you know what, Tracy, you and Monique should get a blog, like a running blog, because he says he's so enamored with how we everyone we pass, we give encouragement to as we're running, and it's so funny. He said, "You all really should do a video while you're while you're running, because the way you all encourage other people and just have so much fun together, I think it would inspire others." So I'm considering to do that also.
That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have other family members that are involved also, like in athletics or running or?
So my cousin in Houston is yeah. So she's the one I usually run with. She just finished what's called the MS 160, where they did 160 miles across Houston, and this was about 2 weeks ago. She rode her bike for overnight for 2 days. The first day it was 100 miles, and the second day it was 60. And then my other cousin, who's inspired me to run as well, Stacy, she's the one who's going to run the leg in our Ironman. She's been running forever. She's done multiple marathons as well. So our mothers are sisters. We have our grandfather, who was very athletic. He played football. He was very instrumental in their adaptation to tennis and other sports, and I'm sure he influenced my mother when it came to what she majored in at school. And also my mother was just she was just inducted to the school that they call it a Hall of Fame over at Carver, George Washington Carver High School. She was just inducted into the Hall of Fame for sports for being an awesome coach over there for the years that she was there. So I'm honored to be, her daughter, and she can still, put her hurting on me with tennis too. She plays tennis still, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so trying to keep up with my mother and my cousins. I'm not going to be left behind.
So you're competitive as well,
I
right?
am,
Yeah,
I am,
that's so
absolutely.
cool.
When I first started working out, I was in my early 30s. Working out hard at the gym, I should say. I've always been active with sports, but working out hard at the gym to see my results. I had one trainer tell me, "Well, Tracy, if you really want to see your results, you're going to have to change your eating habits. You're going to have, you can't eat, fries and chips and expect, that to reflect well on your body." And then another person told me, yes, that the certain foods cause you to have cellulite. And so I, wasn't about, trying to have cellulite. So that was, I guess it's kind of a vain statement, but it was really driven initially on how I looked. And after I started seeing the results and feeling the results of eating well, my whole mindset changed, and I embraced, eating well and clean and healthy live foods, and having live foods be my base, and the what I encourage others to embrace also.
Because it really does have a big impact.
Yes,
on,
absolutely.
And cellulite, I mean, if that's your motivator, that's your motivator.
At that point in time it was, but I'm 50 now, and it's a little harder no matter what you do to try. But I will say, your food, it is true, you are what you eat, and if you eat poorly, it's going to show, no matter what. It's going to, come up in your skin, in your body physique, and it's just going to, and so I'll just say that I'm my family's biggest fan, and I encourage them, everyone I encounter, even my teammates at work, they know if they want to ask talk about food and diet and just how to become more healthy conscious with their diet. They know that I would love to counsel and instruct, even though I'm not nutritionally, I don't have that certification yet. This is one of my goals, to become certified, and so that when people talk to you, they say, okay, well, she's certified, she really knows. But now I just use me as the example. And it's all about educating yourself and becoming aware of your body and how what's good and what's not for you. I'm active most days, so
Okay.
if I'm not running or working out, I'm gonna do something active. Whether also I entail yoga, I'll and throw a yoga class in there so that I don't get all knotted up and it also releases. So I'm active, you can say, most days, which suits me. Yeah, I prefer to be doing something because it just makes it's a good stimulator. It makes me feel good.
Oh, good, good. And so you already said that your husband was at the gym. And so how about your son?
Oh, he's active also. He cannot. I was just thinking yesterday, we kind of let him get a pass because he'd had some heavy tutor sessions. But as I was doing push-ups yesterday, I said, "Oh, we kind of let Trey slide with the push-ups." But he was keeping. He runs with me, usually 3 or 4 times a week. After dinner, we'll run the food down, and then we'll come in and do some push-ups and other stretches and crunches but nothing more than 20-30 minutes, just so that he's comfortable and ready to get started with any other program. So I'm going to start him up with a basketball coach this coming year, and so he's embraced working out. He's embraced drinking smoothies every day from his mom. He doesn't turn his nose up at the color anymore, and usually even if the smoothie tastes a little green, he says, "Oh, mommy, it's delicious." Even if I can taste it, it's not as sweet as it could or could be. But so he's pretty much embraced the eating right, and he knows that when we're cheating, he says, "Okay, mommy, it's just for now. It's not So I allow a cheat day or 2 for him.
Well, that's wonderful because a lot of children don't even have that experience of any activity.
Right.
So they've taken physical ed out of a lot of the schools, and so the kids don't move.
Right.
So that's wonderful. So what about the neighborhood children? Do you ever get them wanting to be involved with you guys or
I'm
to
working
join?
on that. I'm working on that. So it's funny you mentioned every morning in the past month I've been running, and I see the kids leaving off to school just as we witness them coming back, and I know they were like, "Oh, here she comes." She's gonna, because I'm the lady that's always speaking and saying, "Hey, have a good day," and stirring up conversation. So I'm working on it, with this generation there. I see them playing outside at night in the evening sometimes, so I can't say that they're not all active, but it's a different generation of what do you call it? They're into the internet and social media, and what they can do online. And so, but I am working on devising a schedule for. I'm going to get with the community center up here, and see if we can't pull together a couple of classes over the summer. I would first say, write down what you would like to do. Write your goals down, and then break them up into something that's easily achievable, so attainable. So say, for instance, if you are looking to start running, or if you are looking to lose some weight, let's first write down, okay, I want to run a 5K, I want to run a marathon. Well, let's first start walking the neighborhood. Let's write it down and then break it down into smaller pieces. I would start walking around the neighborhood, and in intervals, I would say, do a little trot and see how that feels, and then continue working up to it. And I would suggest doing it at least, 3 times a week, and it's always fun to take someone with you. So having your kid or a dog walk with you would be a a good motivator as well. With diet, I would also state to write down your goals as far as your weight goals and how you would like to see yourself. Give yourself at least a year, and then write down some things that you enjoy but you can do without, that you know are not good. So we all know, right, what we instinctively have a trigger in ourselves that says, okay, well, I'm eating this. This isn't really good. And I would just suggest, when you have these ideas of what you'd like to eat, to think of the nutrition value and what it's going to do for you, because ultimately what you put in, you're going to get out. And when you're eating, you want to eat live foods. You want to eat a healthy live diet of greens and fibers, and let that be the most that's on your plate, versus having a lot of starches and meats. I'm not saying don't eat that. I'm just saying once you start giving yourself more of the live foods, you'll find that you will prefer them. Initially, it may not be something. It'll be something that's a challenge, but putting aside the processed foods, the chips, and I'm not saying forever. I'm just saying until you start to see some results. I will say that each year I do a fast every quarter, and that fast is from 10 to 20 days. When I fast, I abstain from all processed foods, anything that may have been fried, or chips, or meat, any heavy sugars. And I find that when I do this, when I'm off of the fast, I don't want these things anymore. And I would suggest even trying to do a fast, and it could be a food-based fast. It could be a spiritual. You incorporate your spiritual needs with that. Abstaining from things that would distract you from your diet and from your spiritual needs, and you'll find that when you return, or you get off the fast, that you're no longer desire for those things anymore. I remember you asked, when did I start running, and you saw that I kind of counted back, and I used my son's age as a guide. He's 9 now. I think I said I started running when I was about 8 years. So yeah, so I waited until after he was born, and decided that would be a good, also a good outlet for working out. But I wanted to say that I worked out throughout my whole pregnancy. I got pregnant at 30. No, I was 30. I was 40 when I was pregnant. So my goal was to continue staying healthy and working out. And believe it or not, I worked out until the last day, right before I delivered. So it can be done. It took me exactly 3 months to be ready. I could put my clothes back on in 3 months, and it was a challenge for me, because I wanted to not only prove to myself but to others it can be done. I had instructors and trainers who were working out, who I saw pregnant and come back, bounce back, couple of months later, and they were, like they had not had a child. So with that, so one of the challenges that I was faced with, though, were the doctor community, the doctors that I saw, because of my late age and having a baby. They were all so nervous about whether or not I would do well. But by the time I was 5 months pregnant, my perionatologist said, Miss Kirkland, please, no concerns here. You have the pregnancy of a 21-year-old. Having said that, my son is 9 years old. My husband is 11 years older than me. So we have continued to stay healthy and continue to stay active by running and working out. And my husband goes to the gym every day, works out. He's also, I'm competing with him as well. so just trying to stay healthy. And if you saw him, you would not believe he's 61. But he's, the youngest looking 61. People think he's my age. It's so amazing. So we're blessed in that way. Something I cannot leave out of this. Whenever I receive a compliment as such, I do have to give honor to God, because He is why and He is how. And so one of my main ways of getting people in conversation, if I do get this compliment, is to let them know that not only has He enabled me to do it, He can do it for you too. It just takes some determination, focus, and you can do it.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
My name is Joseph Dillard, and I've been in financial services for about 30 years. Now, financial education is so important to me because I graduated from Northwestern University with a degree in economics. After I graduated, I got married. Actually, I got married before I graduated. And something that I discovered is that my degree in economics did not teach me how to manage money. Shortly after graduating, I went into financial services. I worked in retail banking, and again, I realized that working in retail banking did not teach me about financial education. My wife and I struggled with debt. We didn't have the knowledge. We ended up having 12 credit cards. So at a very, very young age, we had lots and lots of debt and just struggled. We just didn't know what to do. As you may know, a lot of us don't learn how to manage our money from our parents. We don't learn how to manage money in school. Therefore, as a result, we suffer. We suffer and do the best we can. We learn from celebrities who really don't teach us. They kind of show us, but they don't teach us. We learn from the media, who again, they don't teach us. They do a good job of supporting corporations that tell us. And also, unfortunately, we don't really learn from banks. We make a lot of mistakes from banks. So being in the financial services industry so long, what I learned is a lot of people, especially in the communities of color, suffered because of the lack of financial education. I noticed that a lot of us were getting a lot of NSF fees, non-sufficient fund fees. What was happening is I tell them, you are giving away money. And that's exactly what was happening. They would spend more than they had in their accounts, and unfortunately, a lot of them would willingly pay fees. Back then, maybe $25, now between $29 and $40 every time it's done. And again, a lot of it has to do with never learning how to manage their money. I noticed that a lot of people of color in my community, in our community, were turned down for loans. They would definitely readily apply for loans, but they were turned down again because they never learned how to manage their money. After being in financial services for a while and realizing this, I decided, what can I do? I'm an expert because I've been through the same thing. I know what I'm teaching people because, again, I've suffered from debt. I've had a difficult time because I never learned. So I decided I would help people learn how to manage their money, because something I learned is learning how to manage your money will literally change your life. And that's something I truly truly believe. So I started helping people. I started as a budget coach and a financial coach. And one thing that I learned that is so, so important, and this is what the first thing I talk to people about when I talk to them about financial education, it begins with changing the way you think. Changing your thinking is the most important thing. A lot of people think the answer to their problems is making or getting more money. The thing is, if you don't change your thinking, if you're making $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year, $100,000 a year, and you double that, if you do not change your thinking, you will just spend it or waste it away. So I talk to them about changing the way they think, and it's so crucial. It is so crucial. And I always tell them there's a statistic, or there's something that says that even people who have a PhD and make over $100,000 can be in money trouble. So it's not the level of education, it's not the amount of money. Also, there is a documentary on athletes I love, not to make fun of them, but ESPN does a 30 for 30. It's called 30 for 30 Broke. And it's about athletes who, over their careers, maybe made hundreds of millions of dollars and ended up broke. How could that happen, you say? How can you're thinking, give me some of that money and I won't have a problem. Well, if you were taught to spend more than you make, then you're going to be broke. So if you make 100 million and spend 125 million, you're broke. So that's why I always tell people, it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with the money you make. That's what's important. Now after that, I have people track what they spend, because a lot of times people don't know where their money's going. In fact, I had a client, one of my favorite clients, him and his wife made over 6 figures, and they came to me and they were getting ready to walk away from their house. They were just saying, we don't know what to do. We can't make our mortgage payments. And they came to me, I went through the process with them to introducing what I do, looking at their goals, looking at their financial situation, and we looked at them. And because of my knowledge in financial services, first, I helped them to refinance their mortgage, rather to modify it, so they ended up with lower mortgage payments. Then I had them track their spending so they could see where their money was going. Because I'm thinking, just like a lot of people do, you're making over 6 figures, but you have no idea where your money's going. But that is very, very common for a lot of people. So what they would do is track their spending for 2 weeks. One of the biggest problems is eating out. And I say it's a big problem because people have no idea how much money they spend eating out. And this couple probably spent $500 to $700 a month eating out. So right there, they adjusted their spending and they saved. A lot of people spend a lot of money on cable. To this day, I don't understand how cable can be so expensive, but they will. And a lot of people get caught in a trap, still surprises me. They go for 90-day promotions of free. They are offered premium channels for 90 days and they think they're smarter than the cable stations. So at the end of the 90 days, they say, I'm going to cancel the service. Well, they end up not canceling the service. So they go from free to maybe $90 or $100 a month. And then they decide, okay, I'm going to keep it. Some people are spending $180 plus just on cable alone. And sometimes they do it for a particular sports season or something like that. That's another way. Again, I let them see where their money's going so they can determine, because I can't force anybody to do anything, but I let them see their financial situation, help them to understand where their money's going so that it can help them to make cuts where it's necessary. Going back to this particular couple, after they were able to get their mortgage modified, they found out where their money was going. They set up a savings plan. They went from getting ready to walk away from their house to keeping their house to from saving $0 a month to actually saving $1,600 a month with the same amount of money they were making. And to me, it's one of my success stories. I love it because what it tells you is, again, a lot of people think the answer to their problems is making more money. This couple was making a decent salary and continued to make the same amount of money. And as a result, of making some changes, again, they were able to keep the house they had. They ended up saving $1,600 a month, and they started budgeting. And in fact, they went from not saving anything to be excited about saving money on a monthly basis. In fact, when he was laid off for a while, he said he didn't want to go into his savings. I said, that's why you have the savings. But it was great because they didn't miss a beat. But because they were saving the money, they were able to use that. 6 weeks later, when he started working again, they didn't miss a beat, no late payments, and they started in a good position again. So again, that's where I start. I start with there, and then we look at a budget. For a lot of people, a budget is a bad word. They're like, I don't want a budget because I don't want to be restricted on how I spend. Well, actually, a budget is a tool, as I said, to help you know where your money is going. And that's just it. Again, a lot of people are just spending and they have no clue where their money is going. I'm going to reiterate, it's not how much money you make, it's what you do with the money you make. And if you know where your money is going, there's a better chance that you'll use it more wisely. So I help people see what's coming in and I help them see what's going out. And sometimes if what's going out is more than what's going in, I say you've got a decision to make. You've got a decision to make. You can cut expenses or you can increase your income. Well, a lot of times after tracking, they can see where they cut their expenses. And there are times also when I look at the situation and say, you actually have extra money at the end of the month. And they go, I don't know where that money is because I don't see it. But as a result of budgeting and tracking, they can actually see it. So what I help them to do then is to create an emergency fund. What's an emergency fund? Well, what I tell people, it's for the unexpected things. And the thing about unexpected events, you can expect them to happen. Your car is going to break down, an appliance is going to break down. You're going to need unexpected money. And the thing is without an emergency fund, what's going to happen? You're going to use your rent money, your mortgage money, your bill money to use that. And then after that's taken care of, you're trying to figure out how am I going to make it up? Then you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You end up trying to catch up and catch up and catch up. And then you end up sometimes taking out a payday loan. Payday loan is going to I wouldn't even call it a financial institution. I'm going to just say going to a predator who charges you high interest rates for a small amount of money. And then what's going to happen is because you're behind, you're going to pay it back with your check. But because you don't have enough money, you're going to go right back to that same predator, if you will, and do the same thing over and over and over again. And sometimes people get trapped with that. They pay high interest rates. And I'm going to go to another client. They were doing the same thing. Banks started to offer this. They realized how much money was in this. So what they would do is they would let clients borrow $500 every 2 weeks, and they'd have to pay $50 for this service. Imagine the amount of interest for that. Well, what would happen is at payday, they would pay the $500, but of course, because they paid $500 for the loan, they would be short. Because they were short, they would borrow it again and then pay the $50, and they would continue to do so. By sitting down and showing them how they could save money and catch up, what they could do is pay that off, never to go back. Therefore, they wouldn't have to continue to pay that $50 every 2 weeks. That's $100 a month, $1,200 a year for a $500 loan. It's just crazy. But again, what people don't know can definitely hurt them. And it puts them in a position where they seem hopeless and they don't know what to do. And it happens a lot. And as a result, too, people get depressed. Financial worry, financial problems is one of the biggest causes of divorce. One of the biggest causes. Can you imagine all you're doing is worrying about money? There's very few people who are happy when they're worried about bill collectors. There's very few people who are happy when they don't know how they're going to pay their bills. You put a spouse into that situation, maybe blame and something going on, and on top of that, people have different spending habits. People value money differently. You might, a lot of times, like we say, opposites attract. You might have a spender who's attracted to a saver. And that happens. And as a result, if you have debt, it can be a recipe for a very, very unhappy marriage. So again, learning how to understand and budget and things like that can lead, I don't guarantee it, but it can lead to a happier relationship.
Now, I get that the media targets certain populations of people with the new iPhones or the new electronics,
Yes.
the new designer shoes, or whatever the beauty industry says that we have to be pretty.
Yes.
And so we got all of this money that's coming out because we're still wanting to identify ourselves as being. So you finish that sentence
Oh
for
my
me.
goodness. Oh my goodness. What a sore subject. I'm 52 years old, so I lived through the 80s, the bling bling, conspicuous consumption. It was all about how you looked. And in our community, we bought into that big time. Even before then, I remember growing up in the 70s, it was so important to have a Cadillac or a Lincoln. It was so important to have brand names. I grew up, my parents, there were 12 of us. So I didn't even know. I knew we didn't have a lot of money, but I didn't know we were poor until people started making fun of the clothes we wore that came from Goodwill. I didn't know that. But a lot of people took that to another level. And because they were poor, as soon as they started working, they wanted to look like everybody else. So they bought into buying brand names. And yes, because of that, the media, the marketing picked up on that, and they knew how important brand names are in our community. And unfortunately, we manipulate each other with the same messages, which is so unfortunate. We look good, but unfortunately we're not building wealth. We look good, but unfortunately a lot of times we're not buying things that will increase in value. We are consumers more than we are owners. And that's very sad, because what we do is we carry it on from generation to generation to generation. And we say, at least I look good. But unfortunately, as I started in the beginning, we don't learn we learn messages from our families, from our parents, but unfortunately, those messages aren't productive. Those messages don't help us how to save money, to learn how to keep debt low, to learn how to prepare for retirement. Those messages really teach us to live for the here and now. And I'm going to go into another sore subject for me, and that is life insurance. The reason, because within the last 2 or 3 years, each of us has probably seen a post asking somebody to contribute to GoFundMe. Now, I feel very, very sorry for the family and their loss. However, if that person had either been educated or paid attention when life insurance was available, not only could they have saved their family some grief, but they could have set them up. There was a very, very sad story I remember. It was very unfortunate. A gentleman was breaking up a fight, and he was killed. Later on, found out that he and his wife had 7 children, 2-income home, and he didn't have any life insurance. As a result, they had to find money to bury him. Well, they couldn't afford to live in that house anymore. That's very, very sad. And the thing is that's why the financial education is so important. In saving money, interest is so important, the rate of interest we receive. A lot of people in our community are only familiar with banks and credit unions. In this day and age, you may get 1-2%, if you're very, very lucky, rate of return from a bank. A lot of people in our community are not educated on investing. The thing is we can put away the same amount of money as someone who is educated and get a higher rate of return. However, at the end of 30, 35 years, they will have maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 times as much money put away as we would, and it's more because of our lack of knowledge, not because of resources, if you will, but it's because of lack of knowledge. Unfortunately, in our community, we're consumers and not as much owners. And it's so important to be owners. Owners are the ones who control the wealth in our country and control the wealth in our world. One thing I tell people, and I loved owning a home for the stability, but in an apartment, things can happen and you have to leave. When you're in a home, there's very few things that happen that you have to leave. That's because you own the home. And it's so important, I think, to teach those lessons to your children because there's so much transition in our community for different reasons. But again, if you're an owner, you have a lot more value than if you're a renter. Credit is huge. I repeated that because it is so important. As I've talked with clients and helped them to set up a schedule to pay their bills, a lot of them are upset at the end of the month when they say, oh my goodness, I have nothing left. And I say, at least you were able to pay all of your bills on time. And one of the reasons I say that is because a lot of times people have the money and still do not pay their bills on time. One, sometimes they don't match their bill payments with their pay dates. Two, because they don't know where their money is going, they end up paying their bills late. And as a result of paying their bills late, again, they're throwing away money because they're late fees. When it comes to money, people can be very funny. And I say that because there's a lot of trust issues involved with money. However, if you're afraid or embarrassed to reach out, it can only hurt you. And educating yourself can keep you from paying more than you would and can help you to save more than you ever have. So knowledge is definitely power when it comes to money management.
Well, thank you. Mr. Dillard says be an owner, not a consumer.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
My name is Star Waters. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I am a wellness coach. I'm a raw food chef, a flower essence practitioner. I do astrology and numerology to help to find out about people's personalities, to help work with them better. In the past, I have been a diabetes community educator. And I kind of have my hands in a lot of different things where wellness is concerned. I'm also a social media manager where I post exciting things about wellness and health on Facebook.
Excellent. And you have a very fascinating story to share with the world in reference to diabetes.
I lived with diabetes for 15 years, and it's really interesting that the clinic that I went to get diagnosed with diabetes ended up being about maybe 15 years later, the clinic that I ended up working at to become a community diabetes educator. So I thought that was something to look back on and say, wow, who would ever thunk it? After being a person with diabetes, I was always told that I would have it for life. It was my fate, and that I should just expect to deal with the complications of diabetes, which could be amputation, blindness, all of that. It's just what happens. I was able to work with organizations like the American Diabetes Association, American Heart Association, Susan G. Komen, different health organizations in Portland, Oregon, state of Oregon, Multnomah County, where I learned about diabetes and other illnesses, diseases. And then I stepped over the line and went into the wellness area. Within just a few months of actually changing my livet, I went from having a diet to having a livet where I started eating fresh fruits and vegetables. I became totally plant-based, and that meant no animal products, no cheese, no dairy, no meat, none of that. Within 40 days of making that shift, 15 years of diabetes just went away, gone. And that was in 2011, and I am still diabetes free. My blood pressure was almost at the level of having a stroke. I now have normal blood pressure, and I'm just a healthy 70-year-old, living my life like it's golden.
So, what advice, what suggestions, what knowledge have you gained over the years that you would like to share with people? I mean, you learned from the work that you did with the Diabetes Association that people are told that you got to take the pills because you're going to have this, the rest of your life is incurable. So what's your message to people?
My message is to not allow someone else to be your manifester. We all have within us a God voice, a intuition. Allow yourself to remain open so that you can be led to the information and to the outcome that you are searching for. So many times we feel that others know more than we do, and when they tell us something, then we take it as the truth. If someone had told me when I first developed diabetes that there was a chance that possibly I could turn the diabetes around, what I know now to be a reversal of the autoimmune disease diabetes, I would have done whatever it was they said. What I have found in the last few years that I have become the wellness coach to help other people is that I think that people really don't want to know that they can be cured. And it's like once I say you can turn that around, they start telling me about what their doctor told them. So they're not open. And sometimes when God puts people, angels in our path, we have to be open to listen to what the angels are telling us in order for us to see a brighter day and to be victorious in our health and our wellness.
So why do you think people are reluctant to hearing the message you have to share with them that they can turn the diabetes around?
I think there are two reasons. The first reason is this thing is an acronym for the word ill, which is simply I lack love. When people can talk about their illnesses, they get sympathy. Oh, poor thing, is there anything I can do for you? What can I bring you some chicken soup? We as individuals, especially today, are lonely. We may have a lot of people around us, we may have a lot of family around us, but that's just the outer. From the inside, we're empty. And if we can talk about we're not feeling good today, oh, it's just my sugar, that I lack love, it brings other people to kind of lift us up, and we need that. The second reason is people are either afraid of change or they just don't want to do it. They're comfortable in their lifestyle. They're comfortable in the foods that they're eating. Many times the foods that we are eating are generational type foods that our mothers fed us, foods that their mother's mother taught them how to prepare, and we're just stuck in that traditional rut. And if you talk about taking away a lot of our comfort foods and are the foods that are traditional to us, I've heard so many people say, hey, we gotta die of something. While I'm here, I'm gonna be happy. I'm just gonna be happy. But now that we are not dying at age 30, well, some of us are dying at age 36 now. We're reversing that, where it looked like we were living longer, but really the question that should be asked, or are we really dying longer? Because we're dying in pieces. Okay, so now my toe has to be amputated, and then after that, they're going to take off the foot, then they're going to take off the leg, then they're going to start working on the other side. So it's just taking us longer to die, but we're not living really optimal, healthy lives, which is supposed to be what we're all entitled to. It's our divine right to live a healthy life until the day you stop living.
In your role as a raw food chef, do you instruct individuals on how to prepare meals that would change their health condition, or are you, so what's the purpose behind your raw food certification?
Well, let me clarify, I'm not a certified raw food chef. I'm a raw food chef just from practice. So I decided to be raw in 2000, and it sounded really great. I had gone to the International Raw Food Festival and they gave out a challenge to do it. By day 6, I knew that this is what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what that meant. I would have like a plate that had some cut up carrots, cut up broccoli, and maybe, something else on it. And after a day or two, that became really very boring. So what I started doing was thinking of some of the dishes that I enjoyed eating that were cooked foods, like spaghetti. Spaghetti was one of my favorite meals. However, spaghetti in the traditional way also ran my blood sugar sky high with the pasta and all of that. So I came up with this idea to make spaghetti out of bean sprouts, avocado, cut up green onions, and green olives. And I put salsa on it that you find in the refrigerator of the grocery store. And it was very satisfying. So that became my raw spaghetti. And so from there, then I came up with other ideas that I transformed from being cooked into raw food until I had like a whole several meals of things. And so that's what I do. I meet people where they are. I ask them what type of foods do they like to eat, and we start from there. First of all, with helping them to modify those foods, where they're eating less fat, where they're eating, it's not fried, or if they like chicken, I'm not gonna just take them from their chicken and put them on tofu. Well, let's find out how we can do oven fried chicken. So you have to meet people where they are in order for them to sustain the change and be excited about eating the same foods but done in a different way, and it tastes good.
I know at one time you had shared with me that you had discovered the food manufacturers place certain items in the food to get people hooked. Can you explain that?
They're called excitotoxins, and they are basically like, it's the same preface as having cocaine go into your system. Basically, it breaks down to 3 things, which is salt, sugar, and fat. But they also use chemicals, and these chemicals are called excitotoxins. They have scientists in their little labs that they make sure that the food has what they call a bliss point, that it is just enough to, when you take the first bite, you have your eyes roll back in the back of your head, that it just tastes so wonderful, and it goes right to the pleasure center of your brain. And from the first bite on, you want to eat more and more so that you can get that same hit that you got from the first bite. Now, generally, it's never going to be the same. You know that song, it's never as good as the first time. But we're still constantly wanting to get that first time pleasure. So we keep eating and we keep eating and we keep eating. And then before you know it, it's all gone. And then something else is happening with our bodies. Our bodies does not register that this frankenfood is real food. So it never gets full. So it's just a constant feeding, and the body is constantly saying, feed me, because it's not being recognized that it's being fed. So my advice is to eat real food. That's what your DNA is going to recognize. And especially when you're eating fresh fruits and vegetables, your body knows immediately, oh yes, I'm being fed. Two things happen. You eat less and you get full faster when you eat real food. The reason I believe that, first of all, let me say that I did a lot of things to control my blood sugar level when I was eating meat. I cut out a lot of my starches where I wasn't eating pasta and things of that nature, and that helped for a little while. But what happened when I started eating raw food was that the diabetes went away because of the enzymes that are found in raw food. When we cook our food, when we heat the food, it takes away the enzymes. And the enzymes is the healing agent that helps us to heal. When you're doing food as medicine, you don't need the pills. You don't need the medicine, any other kind of chemical type medicine. It's God's groceries, and He gives us everything that we need. So many of the fruits and vegetables replicate the parts of the body that they help to heal and strengthen. And so eating food raw is the magic pill. We're all looking for the magic pill. It's in your vegetable department of your store. You need not go any further than the produce section. And I will tell you one other thing too. It is also the key fountain of youth. So if you want to continue to age backwards, it's possible. You don't have to be old and decrepit. You can be older, wiser, and more youthful just by eating foods that still have the enzymes in them, which is raw fruits and vegetables. And it's so easy to do.
And you're 70.
70 and some change.
And you recently had a comment from someone that said you looked like
I was at least 45 or 50.
that's the type of comments that you can get from people when you do what Star has done, and that is to change your life around. Star, when I met you, you were on a 100-day fast. Can you explain that?
I decided for my 68th birthday to do a fast, and it was going to be an 88-day fast. I was going to end on my birthday, which is February the 18th, and it was a juice fast, But it ended up being a juice fast, water fast, and then I also fasted off of vegetable broth. So somewhere around day 80, I thought, you know what? I'll probably won't ever do this again to go to 100 days, but I can add 12 extra days and do 100 days. And so I added 12 days onto my 88 days, and I successfully completed a 100-day fast. That is a solid food vacation for 100 days.
And what were the benefits and what were your reasons for doing it?
Well, the benefit, of course, is always detoxifying your body. That is the first step in doing any type of healing of your body, is to detoxify. For those people out there that feel that they are having a hard time losing weight, you have to detoxify your body before you can do anything, because you have inflammation, and inflammation is the foundation for all diseases. So when you start detoxing, then you start getting rid of the inflammation. And from that point on, that's the reason why I was able to reverse the diabetes, is because my body was no longer acidic. So in an acidic body, it's just the perfect fertilizer for all diseases. An alkaline body cannot grow diseases. And how do you get an alkaline body? Eat lots and lots of green leafy vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, no sugar, no animal products. I know it's probably overwhelming to you right now to hear all of this, but life is good on the other side. Life is good. I'm telling you. 2 years ago, I was running. I had so much activity going on in my life for someone that was 68 years old. Most of us, when we start getting to that age, we start slowing down and we start having all these aches and pains, and all we do is complain about it. You know, won't life be wonderful when you're not complaining and when you have energy? Yes, it is.
Thank you, Ms. Starr. Do you have any last words of wisdom, advice, suggestions that a person may put in place to begin that journey to a healthier lifestyle?
I would say, when you get up in the morning and you go and look at yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, am I happy with this person that's looking back at me right now? Is the person looking back at me right now experiencing divine health to its highest point? And if your answer is no, then ask, then what can I do to have that person begin to look back at me in the mirror? And then start eating whole foods, real food every single day. And your body will respond immediately. Less than 40 days, 15 years of diabetes gone, reversed, never to return. That would be my suggestion. You can do it.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
What other modalities, you told us about some, but what other modalities have you learned and perfected, I know, in the work that you do?
Indeed. I do solfeggio sound Reiki, and that is an organ and system cleansing. I do a lot of really, really deep trauma work on chakras. And we get so used to hearing, I'm getting my chakras spent, I'm getting them cleared, I'm getting them cleansed. But see, a lot of us, depending on how deep your damage goes, your chakra points can actually be bent. And so when they're bent, nothing bent is spinning. And so it may move a little bit, but it'll get stuck. Some of us are old enough to remember records. To other people, they've never heard of a record. They don't know what a record does. But see, if a record gets scratched, it may play over and over and over again in the same place, and you got to put a penny on the little head so it can keep moving. If nobody puts a penny on your head, and see that copper is a generator, if nobody puts a penny on your head, you can stay stuck in the same thoughts, in the same patterns in your mind over and over and over again. So we use solfeggio sound frequencies, and those are binary beats, very, very high level hertz that go through and they cleanse and clear. We also use many of the Kemetic and the Yoruba healing words so that we can go deep, because we realize that the Yoruba languages and the Kemetic languages vibrate higher than English. And so we use those high vibrating words. We call on those ancestral deities in order to help to go in, cleanse out that deep rooted trauma, so that we can then not only get the chakras cleared and spinning, but we get them spinning in the proper direction, and we don't go back to that. So we get ourselves sealed, because a lot of times we go through healing work, but it doesn't get sealed. So as soon as we go back into the toxic environment, we're wide open, and we take back every negative mitigating force that we just had released. So that's part of the work that I do. I brought one of my sound healing mechanisms with me, and I'd love to just share just a little bit of clearing with the rest of the family. And so those tones start to just go throughout. This is specifically for the heart. So our heart is encased in a pericardium. And so that is the beautiful sac that our heart is covered by. Many of us have a hardening of that pericardium around our heart. And so we wall ourselves in from so much damage. The only challenge with walling ourselves in is that nobody can get in to give us the love that we need, and we can't get out. And so you hear the term, no man is an island to themselves. It's true. And so we become consumed with our own thoughts and with our own belief systems in every aspect, because we've closed out everybody else. So we have to realize my point of view is not the only way of seeing it. Dr. Ray Hagins always talks about the circle, and he says the information that I have is inside of this circle. And just because it's the information that I have that doesn't mean that that's everything that there is to be known about that topic. I choose to open the circle so that I can receive an increase in knowledge. And so when I do, I usually do 30-minute, an hour, or 2 hour sound, solfeggio sound therapy. And we go through and we purify your chakras, we cleanse your aura. Depending on which package you get, we also give the opportunity for you to do a relationship detox. Because every time we choose to be in an intimate relationship with a person, we're making a covenant with not only them, but every person that they have made a covenant with. That's why sometimes we do things and we're like, why did I do that? That's so out of character for me. We have to go back and make apologies. I don't know why I said that to you. I'm so sorry. And we sit there and we beat ourselves up because we're like, and that's because it wasn't you. It was somebody else that you've made a covenant with. And you may not even be dealing with that person any longer. So we go through and we help you to purify from that as well. We do parasite purges. And see, when we have eaten foods that bring parasites into our body, we also attract parasitical relationships to ourselves. So I teach a series, and actually I'll be down in Jacksonville on April 15th, and I teach a series that's called Suicide by Food. Because we don't realize, we talk about the police are killing us and this is killing us, but we have to take responsibility for what we're doing. And so when I have my parasite purge parties, people come and they get rid of what they are attracting to themselves. We do a 40-day follow-up package afterwards because many of us started eating bacon when we were 2. And so you can't cook trichinosis worms out of bacon. So that one encounter could have left those worms in your colon. And they don't just stay little bitty baby worms. They grow all throughout your colon, go through your bloodstream, go up to your brain. So many of our elders that are diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's, no, they have wormy brains. And if you just go through and start doing a parasite purge, start taking Jamaican bitters, then all of a sudden their memories come back. When we in our 30s and 40s find ourselves going into rooms, going upstairs, can't remember what we went upstairs to, as quickly as you can, get Jamaican bitters. They begin to go through and pull those parasites out of your body. They can't stay. The Forgotten Foods has an excellent product that's called Kryptonite. And it's all of those put together. You drop them under your tongue and worms start leaving your body. And so we have to take accountability, take responsibility for what we're attracting. We have to take responsibility. We've been graced with beautiful functioning vehicles. Those are our bodies. Many of us don't love our bodies because we are looking at somebody else that's supposed to be our standard of beauty. You have to be your own standard of beauty and standard of excellence. And when we decide, I'm beautiful, I love me from my head to my toe, I love everything great and everything that needs to be improved, but I love me, then it takes everything to a higher level. So one of the other things that I've chosen to do, I teach cooking classes. I teach them internationally online, and I also teach them at the Temple of Sekhmet, because I want to teach people how to fall in love with these foods and with every property and principle of the foods that we're putting in our body. When you know what you're putting in your body is good for you, you gravitate toward that. When you start looking at raw foods and you're like, okay, if I cook the same food, I lose 50% of the nutrients. Why am I going to self-sabotage continually? Why won't I eat at least 80% raw? and then steam a little or cook if I have to. When you start gravitating toward raw, your body's kind of like, I don't really want that other over there. I know you used to like that, but I snuck in and I raised your vibration. So come on up with me. Then you start attracting higher vibrating beings to you. People who know more than you know, who have more than you have, and don't mind teaching you how to attain it. So everything is interrelated. Our food is interrelated. The parasites are interrelated. The healing is interrelated. As we continue to make the decision, I love me enough to participate in my own healing, everything around us changes. Many of the relationships that we've placed ourselves in begin to change. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing told us something that people took offense to. She said African Americans, highly melanated people, should wait until they're 30 to get married. Because who you are and what you think at 20 is completely different at 25. And it's totally different at 30. By 30, we've finished all our education, we're pretty much financially stable, and we're ready to be in a mutually beneficial relationship in a wholesome and healthy environment for a child. When you have melanin, it actually is an extra bonus. So you've got to now learn how to take that extra bonus and cultivate it and bring it into its excellence and its greatness.
What a beautiful way to end this segment.
Thanks.
We're indeed grateful for you sharing of who you are with the world.
Good, thanks. I appreciate you.
Love and wellness. Life, love and wellness.
Our bees are Italian. Yeah. So one of the fascinating things when I was younger, was how much bees love music. My grandfather tried so many different. I mean, first we played drums to them, and they, but their favorite is violins. We get the best production out of our bees if we play like Vivaldi or Paganini on the music. They smile, they hum, they're just so happy. And so we play it often, the music. It's a vibe, it's a frequency, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know what it is about that, I just know it is about that.
And it's a language.
Yeah, and they understand it. So I watch them. So they leave in the mornings and they fly high and they go all over and they visit maybe 250,000 plants in 6 weeks, right? Each one of them, 30,000 of them, right? Approximately. These are all approximations, but 30,000 bees will visit 250,000 flowers each in a 6-week period. And so they go out high, they come back once they get onto a flower and they start taking that pollen. Now there's two kinds of pollen. Pollen's kind of like corn, it's got a husk. The kernel on the inside is what you want to eat. The husk is just what was protecting it, like the shell of a nut, right? So bees have the capacity to crack that thing open, take that kernel and stuff it in their little pouches. Or get it on their fur, they just saturate themselves with that kernel. And the husk floats around in the atmosphere, and that's what lands all over your car, and that's what looks green and yellow, and that's the pollen. But that's the husk of the pollen, not the pollen itself. But people don't usually draw a distinction between those two things. And they're two very different things. It's like eating the husk of a piece of corn. Ain't nearly as tasty as the corn itself. And so you don't eat the husk, but it's got other uses, right? Packing and whatnot. And so they saturate themselves with that kernel, and then they bring it back to their hive. Now when they come home, they're going to be flying about here because they're heavy, because they got all that pollen on them now. And so when they get back into the hive, they do a little dance. They tell everybody in the hive, I know you. You recognize me? This is my dance, This is where I've been today, and let me tell you what I did today. And what if we had to respond to everybody's inquiries with interpretive dance? This is who we are, and this is where we've been, and this is what, And if it's, I know you, I feel you, come on in, right? No words. And so they go in, and when they get in there, we have a little contraption that's subtle, but it helps them to release the pollen, without hurting them. And some of it falls onto these trays, and some of it goes on down into the bottom of the super hive. And they get into that, and that's how they turn that into honey. They turn that pollen into honey. And no one knows how they do that. They just do that. And so when it's created, about 50% of the contents to this day are unknown. They don't know what it is. They don't know how they do it, and they don't know what it is. They can say, well, they seem to chew it up and spit it out. But is that what they're doing? I mean, we don't know. You know what I mean? But we do know that we don't know what it is. And the reason our people say we don't know what it is because it's not here yet. It's the future coming in. It's like, what is this light? You know what I mean? How am I able to see all these things? I mean, what is this? You know what I mean? I'm no longer in a dark room, And so we believe that if you eat pollen from the local area, you're getting the information from all the stars on how that local area, including you, because you're local, we're native to this area for the time being, we all have the same information about what it takes to sustain us. How can we replicate ourselves in our own image every day and stay healthy, stay wise, stay well informed, you know what I mean? And continue to have the energy to support our neighbors and our community. It takes a lot of energy to do that. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And the more obstacles we bump into, the more energy it takes. And then all of a sudden you start attracting what people have come to call energy vampires. Because if you got too much energy, a lot of people will want some of it. And so you have to kind of protect yourself against all of that. And that's why, and the light knows that. So that's why they sent us pollen. Very small doses, lots of information. A quarter of a teaspoon, 250,000 flowers. So all of the colors, all the smells, all the dreams of healing that these flowers have for each one of them, whatever they're, just like us. What do you want to do? You say, well, we're all human beings. We all have an appearance like a flower. We all have a smell just like a flower. We all be able to help somebody just like a flower. But it's up to us who that is and what that is and when that is and how that is. Same way with the flowers. So, but if you sing to them their songs, they're more prone to want to harmonize with you than ever before and work really hard for it. The idea that DNA and the blueprint for life on this planet is profoundly critical right now. And there's another food that has a lot of DNA in it. It's seaweed, like spirulina and chlorella. But the difference is spirulina and food from the ocean has a memory of the food chain. Everything that's ever happened on this planet is in the protein, amino acids, the consciousness of ocean food. I mean, that's like primordial life, right? Wow. You can go back 5 billion years if you eat spirulina. But now the future is in the hands of the honeybees. If we want to sustain ourselves and continue to replicate ourselves in our own image, we need to come out of the ocean and go into heaven and the stars. Because the stars all know exactly what to do. They've been doing it forever. They know how to orbit, they know how to spin, turn, they know where they're going. You just have to trust the Creator don't make mistakes. Everybody's in the right place at the right time until somebody comes along like a demonic infectionist, kinds of fear, greed, and control and all these horrible things, and tries to reinvent something that God made. And typically does not have a good outcome. It just leads to conflict and war and death, and nobody wants to raise their babies in a war zone. I don't care what anybody says. People want you to raise your babies in a war zone, but the people that don't want to, you look at them and you talk to them, and they would be carrying their dead babies. I want to go. You think, oh, this is so sad. So all of this has somehow gotten twisted by some kind of infection. So I'm suggesting that once we make a choice, expand our menus to include more than what is familiar to us, well, I know you live up there in the woods, Tom, but you got it made. You don't live in the real world. I said, what? They said, yeah, I live downtown, I got to drive in traffic. That's the real world, it's like toxic cities and urban energy, that's the real world. I said, no. You got to go back a little bit. Think about history. It hadn't always been that way. What if you was in Atlanta and you could see through the concrete, and you could actually see the watershed of the Peachtree watershed, and you could see how it was when it was just hills and valleys and pastures, and it wasn't like the Capitol and the Gold Dome and this, that, and the other, but it was just fields and woods and forests. That's energy, and that dream is still there in the ground. You take all that concrete away, you blow it all up, you wouldn't recognize that place in 10 years. It turned back into a forest. We can see that from the Mayan ruins in Mexico and all the places. They can't even see them. The jungle has grown up so much around them. And a lot of tribes in this country and in Africa and in South America build their villages in such a way as you can't hardly tell them from the environment. The San people were the perfect ones. Their language even sounds like the wilderness. They have this clicking language. You walking through the woods and these guys are talking to each other, it sounds like a bunch of tree frogs. You don't think your humans are around. You don't get scared that somebody's going to shoot you. You know what I mean? Because we've got a bad reputation in the forest. We're cannibals. We're savages. We kill without warning. We leave bodies laying around, parts missing off of them. We ruin people's homes. We set fire to them every once in a while. Animals have been talking about this for a long time, and this don't want to be with those people. You know what I mean? They're the demons. We all love. We live like animals, but we all have a dream. We all embrace our families. We all want to raise our babies. You look at any chickens, even know who their babies are. You could put 500 chicks, have the mama walk in, and she knows exactly which 3 or 4 or 6 are hers. So I know they got a solid dream. Everybody. And so that's, for me, the significance of the pollen and the bees and the flowers. Honeybees were designed, they haven't been here all the time. They only got here about 500 million years ago. And I think it was because the starlight said we needed them. We ain't doing it by ourselves. They saw something. Like a long time ago, back in the early 90s, I went out to Colorado. This fellow, a friend of ours named John, was 40 years old, and he had just made $40 million in the Chicago stock market. Wow. He said, if I make $40 million by the time I'm 40, I'm going to give back to the people. So he said, all right. So he sent us all an invitation to come to his brand new 1,000-acre ranch in Colorado. And so I went out and bought me a briefcase, I said, don't forget to ask for the money. Don't forget to ask for the money. And so I get out to Colorado, and it's me and Sequoia Trueblood and Gene Colucci from the Wintun people. Trueblood was from the Cherokee people. And it was Thomas Benyanka, right before he passed away, a Hopi elder. And we did a sweat lodge. What happened was, on one side of the mountain of the ranch he bought, he was looking for something or trying to make something, and he blew something up and it created a hole. Come to find out, this mountain was a geode. It's like hollow on the inside. And when they went inside, it was all these like crystalline looking things in there, and a little stream flowing through it, and the dirt was black and the stream looked red. And he said, this is a magical place. I said, yeah. So we built a little sweat lodge. We did a sweat lodge. After about 2 days of getting in, getting out, getting in, get out, he said, okay, now you can go look at what I want to show you. So we went deeper into this cavern, about 1,500 feet. And there was another big room, and he had run cables all back in there to light it up, you know. So he lit it up, and it was about a 30-foot ceiling, you know, around like this, with various mandalas on it. Some of them this big around, some of them real big around, very complicated, almost like Buddhist-looking, detailed circles with intricate pictures inside of them, geometric, sacred geometry kind of looking stuff. It wasn't really like pictures of trees or anything. It wasn't like cave art, you know. It was definitely some kind of communication. He said, does any of you know what this is? He says, I am perplexed. You know what I mean? I dream about things, I fantasize about things, but I really have no idea how deep inside this mountain, in this cave, somebody was here at one point and put these on the roof. What is it? And I was blown away. I mean, I felt like I was in the past and in the future. I felt like I was doing time travel right there. You know what I mean? It's like somebody did this like a long time ago, and I'm looking at it right now. This is unreal, you know. Thomas Banyanka, the old guy from the Hopi people, he says, I know what this is. My people told me what this is. I said, what is it? He said, well, I know that it was done by a group called the Anasazi.
The what?
The Anasazi, the ancient people.
Okay.
And he said, this is a picture of every disease on this planet. They went ahead and showed you what it looked like in its seed. These are the seeds of fear, and the seeds of cancer, and the seeds of this, and the seeds of that. They put them on there, drew a picture so you'd know how to avoid them, like a map, right?
Wow.
Don't look at this, don't do this, you know, stay away from this one. Or in some ways of thinking, give them dignity and give them respect, because they can take you out. You know what I mean? So we honored them. So what they did, according to Thomas Banyanka, was take those and make an altar out of them. So they never contracted them because they kept them all happy, just by their community realizing what they could do if they went nuts. We could take you out, you know, just like they're doing now. So now we believe that Mother Earth has an autoimmune deficiency, because people are attacking each other, just like cells in the body. Cells in the body, they say, well, cancer, your cells don't recognize each other. You know, they're thinking it's a foreign body. That's exactly what we're doing. We're attacking each other. We're thinking it's a foreign body. We don't realize we're all in this together. This is us. There is no other word for other. You know, it's not I, me, mine, right? It's us, we, and ours. Our home. We have to do something, you know? It's just us. And so that's, I think it's all tied into the flowers, because that all happened at the same time. See, and all the analogies use the term seed, hidden seeds. We are the seeds of the future. And and our people say that's why they couldn't destroy us all, because we carry these seeds. And we keep coming back, just like nature. They can't get rid of us. And they became seeds. And look what's grown. Look what's evolved. Because if they don't evolve, it mutates. And there's been some mutants that have been created over the years, you know, that somehow gain access to public opinion, and they're not human at all. I don't know who they are or where they're from, but it ain't here. Because if they were from here, they would care about the future. They came here like an infection. You know, one of the things about a virus, it wants to consume its host. That's one of the main characteristics of a virus. It's actually trying to become you. But it's totally unsuccessful because it's not you. So you die. And the virus moves on.
Wow.
That looks like what's happening here.
Wow.
Some kind of a cosmic virus has taken over, and it's trying to consume the world. It's all the trees, all the fish, all the animals, you know what I mean?
Wow.
All the land, until what's left? This mutated replica of something that once was.